Well, we're recording this on a day that's over 100-degree index. Trying to keep a little space cool so we can do some of this kind of work. And I met with Dawn Beale today, who's been my friend for a very long time. I was trying to figure that out. It's been at least 12 years that we've known each other. In fact, at one time, I was her attendant. Attendant meaning somebody that offered care and support for her because she is a wheelchair user. She'll explain to you in just a minute her actual diagnosis and the things that are with her body that she is in need of such care. But I spent a little over a year with her, caring for her needs at her direction. So she decides what feels comfortable for her. She knows what she needs medical wise. She knows how it's best to carry her, to get her to the toilet. She knows what kind of food she likes and what kind of utensils work best for her hand. And basically you learn those things, you follow the directions, and it's fulfilling work, but it is work. It's a lot of work. And at the time I worked for her, it was about $10 an hour that attendants were paid. I did that at a time in my life shortly after my husband passed, and I really wasn't sure what we were doing. And it was a way to do something and get a little income while we were figuring all of those things out. And I got to meet Dawn, who is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful human. She cares about humanity and people, and she is able to hold that space for people that are in need, that need somebody to talk to, that they don't have anybody else to talk to help move them to resources. She keeps contact with community, yet it's really hard for her to do those things, those beautiful talents within her, when she doesn't have the care that she needs, and when she's worrying about whether care will even show up in the morning to get her out of bed so that she can even use the bathroom in the morning and take her medicine and get dressed. It's a real issue. In our state of Pennsylvania, caregivers are paid through Medicaid, and they only get paid a little over $12 an hour. So Dawn has been posting a lot lately about her story about the need for care. There was an NPR article that was posted just in the last few days about care and about caregiving, and you'll see her name if you choose to go through some of the comments, conversing back and forth with the people that commented on that article, because she understands in a way that a lot of us do not understand because she's living it. So I'm going to stop talking now and allow you to listen to Dawn herself. All right, Dawn, we're on. Hi.
Hi, Jen.
Thanks for letting me be here today.
Thanks for asking me to do this.
You want to tell people who you are and why I got this camera pointed at you?
So my name is Dawn, and I am a disabled individual. I live in Edinburgh, and I receive in-home care services, and that means that I need caregivers to essentially facilitate all my physical needs in my life. So lately, well, as in 4 years, that has become extremely difficult. So Jen and I are going to talk about why it's difficult and what that means for people that are disabled, and maybe a little bit about funding. So I'm going to let Jen answer or ask me questions.
So what kind of, I don't want to say, like, what diagnosis, what was your travel to this point?
So I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was 2, and then later with congestive heart failure, and then later with Addison's disease, and I have brittle bone disease, and I also have no space in my abdomen because of the way that I am severely scoliosis, if that's a word. And so my diaphragm is cramped for space. So now I'm on oxygen because my diaphragm has no space. So I have a lot of comorbidities that cause me to use this wheelchair.
And what do you like to do? Just about you.
I like to garden. I like to cook.
I did see your garden. We'll take a picture of the garden for everybody because I saw that on the way in.
Yeah, trying to grow some stuff. I like to eat. I like everything to do with food. I like to cook it, buy it, smell it, mostly eat it.
And share it. Who do you? And who are those people you share it with?
Anybody. I will share it with neighbors. I cook for our local food pantry, and I used to cook for the community, but now because I don't have the caregivers, it's getting harder and harder for me to cook. And then I also like art. I like a lot of art stuff.
So I'm going to rewind back to the food bank for a minute. And you said you cook for the food bank. What does that mean?
So the local food pantry runs on about 20 to 30 volunteers. And every week we meet and we give out food to about 200 local families. And we feed our volunteers. It's like one of the perks that we give the volunteers for helping out every week. And we've become a big family. And before COVID, I was in one of the rooms to give away items. And then when COVID hit, everything moved to outside. And our person who was making the lunches for the volunteers, she was older, so she left the pantry. And we were left without someone to make lunch. So I was like, I can do that. So myself and my attendant would go every Tuesday or Thursday. Back then it might have been different. And we would make the lunch and serve that to the volunteers. And then that attendant left, and so I had a different one. We went all through COVID and the next 2 years making the lunches for the volunteers. And that means I would make them here on Wednesday and then take them over there and serve them on Thursday. Or I would prep here Wednesday and take it over there on campus to cook for Thursday. And then in 2022, I broke my femur and I was down for 6 months on bed rest. And then later in that year, I had an emergency splenectomy and I was again down for months. So during that time, they obviously needed someone to cook the lunches. So someone took my place. And then after that, I went back and they of course made me feel like family still. And I started making their desserts. So now I make their desserts every week.
And when you say attendant, what's an attendant?
So a personal care attendant goes by a lot of different names. They'll go by caregiver or direct care worker, support worker. But basically it's someone who comes in your house to facilitate your daily needs. And that can range for many people anywhere from sitting with you and watch TV. That would be something like a companion worker, or someone who's an actual personal care attendant, which is they help you shower, dress, eat, cook, clean, go to the bathroom, change your clothes. They do everything you need.
And you have the second kind.
The second what?
You have the second kind, the one that does everything.
Personal care attendant, yes.
Yeah, and then how do you find those people? Or
you don't anymore because no one wants to work this job because it doesn't pay enough. But if you wanted to find them, ideally, you could put an ad up in local groups, so like neighborhood groups. You can put up signs around town, word of mouth.
So when you say that doesn't pay enough, how do they get paid?
So there's 2 ways for you to get attendance, basically. There's what's called waiver care, and there's agency care. I currently have a mixture of the 2. All my life I've always just had waiver care, and that's where you are the employer and you hire and fire your own DCWs. They're called direct care workers. When they come on, they have to sign up with the state and do some mandated trainings. And then they fill out all their W-4s, all their paperwork essentially. And then they come to you and help you. I forget my question already.
How do they get paid?
Oh, how do they get paid? So once they fill out all that paperwork, that's how they get paid. And even though I'm considered the employer, we have what is called a fiscal agent. Currently, it goes through a company called Tempest, and that handles all their tax information. So once they fill out their information, when they come here, they clock in and out, it gets submitted to Tempest, the fiscal agent, and Tempest gives them their check.
Okay, and where does that funding come from?
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Yeah, Medicaid. And one thing that I wish people did understand is that oftentimes you'll see direct care workers make $20.63 an hour, which isn't true. In Erie County, most of us can pay our care workers around $12 to $13 per hour max.
So where do they get that $20 figure from?
So the 2063 is what's called a reimbursement rate, and that's from Medicaid. That money goes to something like Tempest, your fiscal agent. And I'm not sure if only Tempest takes their cut out, but that's where the money starts. And they take out their cut for being your fiscal agent. And then after that, that's what the direct care worker gets. So 2063 is just the state's reimbursement rate to either an agency or the fiscal manager.
Okay.
So that's not what we can actually pay our attendants.
So the pay rate for attendance then in Erie County is a little over $12,
Right.
which is why you're having trouble getting care. Because you can go to Wendy's and get a $15 an hour job.
Yeah. You can go to McDonald's. You can practically go anywhere and make more money than you do for a much higher responsibility job. You have to be reliable and responsible in this kind of job. And you actually have to work. You can't just come and sit here because someone's laying in bed waiting for you. You know,
Okay,
someone has to go to the bathroom.
So explain that. Someone's in bed waiting for you.
When you become an in-home caregiver, the amount of responsibility that you have to bear is incredible. And I don't think our system has any empathy for that. We are seeing caregivers burning out because they're overburdened and underpaid, and they don't get health insurance. They have no benefits, no vacation time. So again, that's another reason that it's very hard to find caregivers.
So what would you want from representatives or people to understand to tell their representatives? Other than don't kill Medicaid.
Right. Don't cut the Medicaid. I think it's important to note that representatives have already heard this. They've already heard it for years, but they're not doing anything. They're just sitting and they're, okay, these disabled people are whining again. Yeah, we're whining because we're yelling, we're barking, and no one's doing anything. So I read somewhere where neighboring states are getting 25 to 75% higher reimbursement rates than Pennsylvania is. I don't even feel like neighboring states get enough. And if you raise ours by 25%, like, I mean, granted that will help more, but still you're competing with jobs like Walmart. What, you're gonna get $15 to stock a shelf, but then you're gonna get $12 to come get someone out of bed and do their personal needs. You can't fight with that.
No, but it feels like it'd be more economical to have that kind of funding than to say, oh, you have to live someplace else where the care is there. And it feels like your independence would be lost as well.
You absolutely lose your independence. And, you know, people are saying they want us to thrive and they want us to succeed. They want us to be healthy. But then they're cutting funding to the only system that supports that. The only way we can thrive or go out and be a productive part of society is to provide us direct care workers who are paid enough to do that. We're only as good as the help that we receive. And if we're not receiving help, guess what? Now you're paying for our ER visits, you're paying to institutionalize us. and then your staff is short in those places. Could have prevented it.
So how much care or how many people or hours or however you want to explain it, are you allotted each week through the Medicaid?
Every person is assessed for their needs individually. So when my congestive heart failure got worse, I saw my hours change after that because I was put on Lasix several times a day. So that meant more bathroom trips for me. So someone who might just need a little assistance with meals would get less hours than someone like me who needs full-time care, like getting me out of bed, getting me showered, dressed, taking me to the bathroom, cook my meals, clean my house. Those are all on an individual basis.
So how many hours is that for you?
I don't want to disclose that.
That's okay.
Because people do like to get angry over that sort of thing.
I did not realize that. Okay, so you get a kickback when you say things like how many hours you need from people? Is that...
You get people who are like, just like with anything else, and like, why does she get that and I don't?
Oh, see, I would have never thought that way. I would have just thought, well, that's what you need. That's what you need.
And that's what it should be. You know, they try to assess you based on your actual needs. So
okay, so and if you don't want to say how many, that's okay. But I know you're low on people to cover your hours that you do need.
Absolutely. Currently, I rely on my partner for about 80% of my care. And I have one other attendant who's been here 7 or 8 years. And I believe that she is burnt out. And so she wants phased out by the end of the year. So that means I'm going to be relying solely on my partner. And I will just say that it is not the best relationship. And I'm not the only one stuck in a position where you have to rely on the only people you can rely on. You know, there's people out there who are dependent upon family, and families have had to quit their jobs to take care of them simply because we can't find anybody to work for us.
And that actually I don't know, I'm suppositioning, is that a word? Right now? But if family members have to not work to caregive, then the whole family needs to be on things like assistance then in order to sustain that. It seems like a vicious little cycle.
And you're creating a whole domino effect of issues because you're getting a higher income. You know, say Johnny makes $20 an hour at his real job, but now his daughter or wife is injured and needs help. So he has to quit his $20 an hour job to become a caregiver that makes $12 per hour. Well, he was the breadwinner. So now that whole family has to go on assistance because there's not enough to support the whole family.
So it's actually less money in the long run to fund the caregivers.
You're making your whole system strained. And then the person receiving the care, Dad wasn't cut to be a caregiver. He was cut to have his 24-hour job doing coal mining, but that's not real. But you know what I'm saying? Like, he was meant for a different skill. And so now the daughter or the mother receiving the care isn't really getting the care they need because they deserve someone who's compassionate and caregiving, not just performing a task.
Is there anything else you think people should know about this situation?
I mean, it's hard to just come up with things off the top of your head. I think we did touch on some of the most important points. But I will say that, like, my quality of life for the past 3 years is awful. I stress on a daily basis. I cry on a daily basis. I constantly worry about when I will be able to not sit here during a care shift and worry about what I'm not getting done because I don't have a caregiver to do it. I worry constantly about my future because the person doing my care is aged and not in the best health condition, but yet he does the job. So what happens when he has a heart attack. I also worry, this is something I want to point out, because I've contacted my agency and my support coordinator, service coordinator, and I'm like, what do I do if my partner is no longer in the picture? Who do I call? And no one has an answer. And I think that's really important. Because my only idea is, I guess I call 911.
Which is an extra strain on you and the
911.
system. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
That was my friend Dawn. Thank you for listening. Thank you for moving through this entire piece to, just take on that information yourself, to remember that when we are voting and deciding on things for funding for Medicaid, Medicare, all the things, because people like Dawn really need the help. They need the backup. They need the assistance. I know people have talked about facilities and being, homes and groups where there are people there all the time. And yet those things are way more expensive, first, than it is for Dawn to live on her own. Second, there is a definite curve of independence there. So her charitableness, her interaction with community, with the people at the food bank, the clients that she has got to know, she helps pick out food, and all of the loveliness that she is able to do for our community will be lost. And that's what gets lost. We lose our humanity. We lose the interaction with pieces of our humanity when we don't take care of each other, when we don't say, yes, it's important for those that are taking care of people to be paid fairly so that they can take care of their own families. And that we can interact just a little bit better. So thanks again for listening. Please remember to vote for people that are keeping people like Dawn in mind, that are making decisions that help the whole of everybody and not just a few. Thank you.